Does what I say account for anything in this blasted town? Of course not. I'm only half of what the others are, according to the rest of the residents of the city that know. My name's Orton. I belong to the Kingdom of Sand. No, wait. Water. Well, it's complicated. 16
Not
years ago,
magenta.
my father... 16 years ago, my father met my mother at Capital Port. They were the complete opposites. My mother a tall, blonde woman, and my father a broad-shouldered, dark-haired man. I suppose it was because they were so young and foolish that they fell in love, but I curse the day that happened. For my mother is a water, and my father is a sand.
Dun dun dun!
And from this I was born. I currently live with my father in Sand City, with his wife and other children. I am treated as second best by everyone. My brothers would spit on everything I own just to make it seem more like water for me. I've grown sick of this. I am constantly a disappointment to those around me. Wait, that's wrong. Wait, am I constantly a disappointment to those around me? Well, hopefully not soon. There's a man called Lloyd looking for an assistant, and as long as I was in the city, capital city, it didn't matter what I was doing. I would go visit my mother soon at Capital City, where all the kingdoms vowed neutral ground. I wondered if I would be judged there. I had often dreamt of living in the city to get a job there, where no one would know me. That is why I was so desperate to get a job as the sand trader's assistant. It would be so simple. It would get me into the city, and then suddenly I'd be within the great stone wall. First the trader looked at me with disregard, but then I showed him I could not only cast a spell of fire, but I could also summon lightning. His wrinkled face creased into 1,000 more intricate patterns, known as a smile. I got the job. The next gruesome weeks I was taught Hold on, my mum's calling. Not that, it's not sorry. The next gruesome weeks I was taught this trader's skills. That is when we decided to go to Capital City. Okay. Not only was I closer to my goal, but I would be able to sneak off to see my mother. The road was long and the sun was so unforgiving. Our horses had to stop every so often from the exhaustion of pulling our carts with the goods. We arrived at Capital City at high noon. We immediately set up our stall and started selling the imports. When my boss had fallen asleep and the market was quieter than the desert, I slipped away and searched for my mother's workplace at a bar near here. Hey, maybe even get a job if I'm lucky. I marveled at the sights, taking it all in so slowly. I was distracted by everything, all the cultures and people. I didn't pay attention to my footsteps and foolishly bumped into a man carrying sacks of wheat. The collision had caused it all to pour out in the sacks, out of the sacks and onto the floor. The man looked enraged. He grabbed my arm and yanked me towards him. I caught the glare of a small blade he had raised in his hand, ready to strike me down. I flinched, but then a tall, dark man stepped in, and with a calm tone he asked, "Is there a problem, sir?" The words spoke softly were like vipers in the other man's ears as he quickly left, leaving a trail of wheat as he thudded away. The strange man smoothed his hair back, and with a snake-like smile he laughed, almost like a hiss. Bloody elves! I couldn't help but laugh at this. The man's sharp eyes were staring at me with intent. "You don't like the people of the forest, do you?" His eyes narrowed, and I frowned. "Of course I don't like them." The man's face softened again, and he whispered, How would you like a job to make a lot of gold?" The random question had struck my attention, and without thinking, I agreed. My task was to deliver a package to the forest embassy, but not look inside and not to get caught. Simple. For that amount of gold, this would be easy. He handed me the small package. It was smaller than I thought, only just bigger than my fist. After I was done, he told me to meet in front of the Sand Embassy. I would visit my mother on the way, as the blue one was close to it, and it was where my mother worked. The package was surprisingly light, but warm, and seemed to be filled with liquid. I walked to the forest embassy and left the box foolishly at the entrance. An elf woman quickly rushed to it and shouted at me to return to pick up my trash. Easy gold, I thought. but then she opened the box. A scream of horror made me turn around as blood dripped from the box, and there was a misshapen object on the floor. "It's the hand of an elf!" she screamed. I was shocked. The floor was soaking up the blood. What had I done? I sprinted as fast as I could. I panicked. That man, whose hand was it? I followed the road to the blue wand, petrified of what would happen next. Every elf I saw, my stomach did a backflip, and I tasted the bile in my dry, nervous mouth. Then I saw my mother. My heart beat faster in anticipation. I'd be safe with her, I thought. I stood closer. That was until I saw her talking to an elf woman. What if they kill her too? Are they after me? How did they know? I panicked when I saw a man wearing the forest emblem scowl at my mother and everyone around me. Am I going to die? Please don't make it now. I saw the female elf that had opened the package surrounded by 3 well-built guards. I trembled as they asked, "Kiori, is that the boy?" She nodded and then exclaimed, "The peace has broken." I ran towards my mother, casting down lightning at the elves, just to keep them away. I didn't mean to hit them. That's when all hell broke loose. My mother's eyes locked with mine, her hands glowed a shade of transparent aqua. The elf girl she was talking to had disappeared, and all around the city had turned into turmoil. Splashes of blood splattered on the streets as more elves surrounded me. I did what I thought was best. I ran towards them, casting down lightning and burning spells, an inferno at my feet, sending rings of blazing crimson to torch my enemies. I don't want this, I whispered to myself, but my feet won't stop and my mouth still forming the words of the spells. My dream was going up smoke. It happened too fast. What about the man who gave me the package? Was I being used so he would have committed this crime? Of course that was true. I didn't even have a kingdom I belonged to. The elves sent a rush of arrows to find me. I tried to blaze them away, trying to fight for my life. I yell in frustration that the war around me grows more violent, hatred pouring from their fingertips. I can't stand this anymore. There's that man. With all my speed I ran towards him, his smile poisoning me with hate and fear. Why would he do this? I kept on running as the sound of swords clashing and arrows whizzing past me deafened me. All I had to do is reach him. The cries of the wounded whispered all around amongst the roars of the warriors. I turned to see the elf woman Kiori aim her bow at me, and I knew I was no match against the speed of an enchanted arrow. With one last glimpse, the man was gone. I turned around to see my mother, to barely hear her scream my name. It seemed like the distance between us was growing at a rapid pace. I faced the woman who I knew would end me, tears flowing in my eyes, and I yelled, "I don't want to die here!" And that's it. And then there's extra, it says, "Here lies Orton Flint, both belong to sand and water, put to death by the bow of an honourable warrior. Crimes committed, treason against the forest and murder of head archer of Eden." He was 16 years old. And then at the bottom it says, "From this Orton's mother knew it was the twisted mind of Orton's uncle, the man who refused to accept that he was from both factions, the sand that had rejected his nephew. She spread the word, and it caught like wildfire, that the anger the water felt for both factions grew strong. Murder of one of their own children through the hand of a forest, and the betrayal by sand of someone who was part sand and water. This is an example why we can never live in peace." The end.
Brilliant.